Those who wrote the Architect's Declaration on March 20th, listen. In 48 hours, a window opens that will not repeat for the rest of this year. Not a single planet is breaking. Not a single transmission layer is jammed. This is the only day in 2026 when a new moon in Aries, the first degree of the zodiac, the ignition point, coincides with Saturn stationed at the same coordinates, Mars moving direct, Mercury moving direct, and 0 retrograde planets anywhere in the visible chart. Maximum bandwidth. Absolute transparency. The configuration that lets you update the 30-year blueprint with a precision that was not available on March 20th, because March 20th happened during Mercury retrograde and will not be available again this year. 48 hours. This is not a drill. Over the last 2.5 weeks, I have been building toward this video. Not in the way a series builds toward a climax, with rising tension and dramatic payoff, in the way an engineer builds toward a deployment window. Each previous video was a preparation step. Video 5 identified the programs running interference with the declared architecture. Video 6 used the Easter protocol to decommission the most constraining program and write its replacement. Video 7 cleared the transmission channel, Mercury direct, 0 retrogrades, clean bandwidth for the first time this year. Video 8 mapped the financial patterns accelerating under fire horse compression. All of that, 4 operations across 2 weeks, was preparation for what happens on April 17th. Let me explain why this particular new moon matters from an engineering standpoint. A new moon is the moment when the sun and moon occupy the same degree of the zodiac. In energetic terms, it is a conjunction. 2 signal sources combining into one amplified broadcast. Every month has a new moon. Most are routine. The conjunction occurs. The amplified signal pulses, intentions set during the window, carry slightly more weight than intentions set on random days. Slightly. The difference is marginal in most months. April 17th is not most months. Here is the stack. Layer 1. The new moon occurs in Aries. Not Leo, not Scorpio, not some mid-cycle sign. Aries. 0 to 2 degrees. The ignition point. The same coordinate where the sun was on March 20th when the Architect's Declaration was written. The new moon returns the amplified broadcast to the exact location where the 30-year blueprint was submitted. To understand why this matters, consider how coordinates work in any navigational framework. When a specification is submitted at a particular coordinate, that coordinate becomes the reference address. The specification lives at that address. All execution references point back to it. When a new amplified broadcast, a sun-moon conjunction, hits the exact same address, it does not create a new entry. It reinforces the existing one, deepens the engraving, increases the amplitude of the signal stored at that address. Think of it as a laser returning to a disk where an inscription was made, not to write new content, but to deepen the groove of what was already inscribed. The new moon in Aries is a second pass over the same coordinates. Whatever was written on March 20th gets reinforced. Whatever was weakly inscribed gets deepened. Whatever drifted during the retrograde gets corrected, if the operator is present and precise. This is different from a generic new moon intention setting. A new moon in Virgo, or in Capricorn, or in any other sign would create a new entry at a new address. It would not reinforce the March declaration. It would start something else. The Aries new moon is unique this year because it is a return to origin, a second pass over the address where the 30-year architecture is stored. This happens once per year. In a year where the 30-year write occurred at that same address, the return pass carries exponentially more architectural significance than in any normal year. Layer 2. Saturn is there. Still in early Aries, still at the ignition point, the same Saturn that pressed the install button on March 20th has not moved far. Saturn moves slowly, roughly 12 degrees per year. It is stationed within a few degrees of its original position. The new moon conjuncts not just the point where the declaration was written, but the planet that made the 30-year rite possible. Saturn is the structural enforcer. It is the planet that determines whether a specification gets compiled into permanent architecture or decays into temporary intention. When Saturn is present at the address of a rite, the rite becomes load-bearing. When Saturn is absent, the rite is provisional. It may execute, it may not, depending on subsequent conditions. Saturn at the ignition point during the second strike means whatever is submitted on April 17th gets the same structural enforcement that the original March 20th submission received. The update carries the same 30-year weight as the original. It is not a minor revision. It is a structural amendment with full enforcement authority. Sun plus Moon plus Saturn at the ignition point. 3 broadcast sources at 1 coordinate. The amplification is not additive, it is multiplicative. Each additional source at the same degree does not add power linearly, it compounds. The engineering term is constructive interference. When multiple waves peak at the same point, the combined amplitude exceeds the sum of the individual amplitudes. 2 waves peaking together produce not double the amplitude, but roughly 2.8 times. 3 waves, roughly 5.2 times. The math varies with phase alignment, but the principle holds. The April 17th configuration produces an amplification at the ignition point that is multiple times stronger than any single source event at any other coordinate this year. Layer 3. Mars is direct in Cancer. Mars governs execution, the conversion of intention into action. When Mars is retrograde or debilitated, execution stalls. Plans sit on paper. Decisions wait in queues. Actions are initiated and then abandoned or downgraded. Mars in Cancer is not Mars at its strongest. Cancer is cautious, domestic, protective. Mars in Aries would be a bulldozer. Mars in Cancer is a foreman who measures twice and cuts once. But in the context of the architect's declaration, which is fundamentally a blueprint for building structures that last 30 years, Mars in Cancer is precisely the right execution energy. It does not build fast and sloppy, it builds fast and solid. It protects what is being constructed. It defends the perimeter of the building site against interference. It ensures that speed does not compromise structural integrity. The fire horse provides the velocity. Mars in Cancer provides the precision. This is a rare pairing, velocity with care. In most fire horse months, the acceleration overwhelms the quality control. In April 2026, Mars in Cancer acts as the governor that keeps the horse from running the walls into the ground. What this means practically: actions taken on April 17th will have both speed and staying power. The fast decisions of the fire horse will be executed with the careful, protective energy of Mars in Cancer. Contracts signed this week hold. Commitments made this week stick. Structural changes initiated this week have the tensile strength to survive the May corridor stress test. This is not true of every day in a fire horse year. Many fire horse days produce fast action that needs correction later. April 17th produces fast action that does not. Layer 4. Mercury is direct. Has been since April 7th. The transmission layer that was jammed for 3 weeks is now clean. Specifications transmit at full fidelity. Decisions move from intention to action without signal degradation. Conversations land. Written documents carry their intended meaning. Layer 5. The capstone. 0 retrograde planets. Not one planet in the entire visible chart is moving backward. Every transmission layer is operational. Every execution channel is open. Every signal source is broadcasting forward. This configuration, all planets direct simultaneously, occurs in most years for brief periods. In 2026, the window runs from April 7th through April 28th. The new moon on April 17th falls in the exact center of this window. The peak of the peak. Maximum bandwidth at the moment of maximum amplification. This is the engineering case for why April 17th matters. Not because quote, _0 __. Not because quote, _1 __. Because the specific combination of signal sources, transmission fidelity, and execution capacity at this particular coordinate on this particular day in this particular year creates a right window that exceeds the equinox in precision and will not be matched again in 2026. Now, what happened to the architect's declaration between March 20th and today? 28 days. In those 28 days, the declaration has been executing. Not perfectly, not uniformly. The execution has passed through 3 distinct phases, and understanding these phases is essential before you update the blueprint. Phase 1. The Retrograde Drag. March 20th through April 6th. The declaration was written at zero bias, clean, but the ongoing execution operated through a jammed transmission layer. Decisions drifted. Implementation was imprecise. Some elements of the declaration executed cleanly despite the interference, typically the ones with the strongest structural charge, the commitments that carried the most internal conviction, the specifications that were so precise they could transmit through noise without losing their shape. Others, the more ambitious elements, the ones that required precise coordination with external parties, the ones that depended on clear communication or on other people understanding exactly what was needed, stalled. Not because they were wrong, because the transmission was degraded. The instruction that left the architect's desk as quote 2 arrived at the construction site as quote 3. The specificity was lost in transit. Concrete indicators of retrograde drag. A conversation you had in late March where you explained your direction and the other person nodded and then acted as if the conversation never happened. An email you sent with clear instructions that produced a response addressing something adjacent to what you wrote. A financial negotiation that was progressing and then went silent for 2 weeks without explanation. A decision you made and then unmade and then remade, not from genuine uncertainty, but from the strange loop of a clear intention failing to land in action. All retrograde signatures. If you review your declaration now, you will likely find that some commitments are ahead of schedule and others have barely moved. That asymmetry is the retrograde fingerprint. Not a reflection of your effort or your commitment, a reflection of transmission quality during the first 17 days of execution. Phase 2. The Clarity Surge. April 7th through today. Mercury went direct, the fog lifted, the clean bandwidth opened. In this phase, things that had been stuck began moving. The decision that had been circling for 3 weeks landed in a single morning. The conversation that had been looping resolved in one exchange, both parties suddenly understanding what the other meant, as if a translator had been removed and they were finally speaking the same language. The financial pattern from Video 8, sudden offers, old cycle closures, redistribution, became visible and actionable. The experience of this phase was relief. The experience of bandwidth returning after weeks of compression. The cognitive load dropped. Thoughts stopped folding back on themselves. The mind felt sharper. Energy increased. The declared architecture, which had been executing in slow motion through fog, suddenly began executing at the speed the firehorse had been demanding all along. For many people, this past week has been the most productive week since the equinox. Not because of more effort, but because the effort finally had a clean path to the target. But with relief came a new problem: visibility. The clean bandwidth did not just enable forward movement, it also revealed the drift. The imprecise decisions from the retrograde period became visible for the first time. The commitments that were slightly off target, close enough to seem right in the fog, clearly misaligned in the clarity, showed their true trajectories. The financial arrangement that seemed acceptable at the end of March now looked like a suboptimal use of resources. The conversation that was __for__ during the retrograde turned out to have resolved a different issue than the one that needed resolving. The commitment that seemed to be on track was on a track that deviated from the specification by 2 degrees. Some people experience this as confusion. __5___ it was going in a direction 2 degrees off from the specification. In the fog, 2 degrees is invisible. The trajectory looks aligned because you cannot see far enough ahead to detect the divergence. In clarity, 2 degrees is a wall that will miss its neighbor by 6 inches at the ceiling line. Not a collapse, a misalignment that creates friction at every joint. The kind of friction that 4 months from now makes someone say, "6, phase 3. Right now. The pre-new moon period, the 48 hours before the conjunction. The declaration has been executing for 28 days. Some elements are running correctly, some are stalled, some have drifted. The blueprint is live, but it is a first draft that has been through a storm. The walls are going up, but some are aligned to the original specification and others are aligned to the retrograde distorted version. What the architecture needs now is not a rewrite, it needs a calibration, a precise adjustment based on 28 days of field data. This is the second strike. The first strike was the equinox, March 20th, the initial write, the blank slate submission, the moment when the 30-year blueprint was first entered into the register. The first strike had the advantage of zero bias, no competing signals, a clean register, the system at its most receptive. But it had the disadvantage of zero data, no execution history, no feedback, no information about which elements would compile cleanly and which would meet resistance. The first strike was an architect submitting a blueprint on day 1 of a project, before a single shovel had hit the ground. It was theoretical, precise in intention, untested in reality. The second strike has the opposite profile. It does not have zero bias, the declaration is already running. The execution history creates a context. The register is no longer blank, but populated with 4 weeks of data. But it has something the first strike lacked. Field intelligence. 28 days of field intelligence. Which commitment moved and which stalled? Which elimination held and which reinstalled itself within a week? Which financial pattern activated and which remained dormant? Where the energy concentrated and where it dispersed? Where external reality cooperated with the specification and where it resisted? This data is invaluable. It is the difference between an architect's vision and an engineer's assessment. The vision says what should be. The assessment says what is, and what adjustment bridges the two. The second strike uses this data to calibrate the blueprint. Not rewrite, calibrate. The distinction is critical and consistently confused. A rewrite says the original was wrong, discard it. Start over. A rewrite at this stage would waste the 4 weeks of execution already invested. The build is underway. Walls are going up. You do not tear down walls that are correctly aligned because some walls drifted. A calibration says the original was structurally sound, the foundation holds, but the execution revealed specific adjustments that improve precision without demolishing what has already been built. In engineering, the first deployment always requires calibration. Every specification, no matter how precise, encounters reality differently than projected. The question is not whether the original was accurate. The question is, now that we have 28 days of execution data, which parameters need adjustment to bring the build back into alignment with the blueprint? Here is the protocol. The architect's second strike. To be executed in the first hour of the new moon on April 17th. Check the exact time for your time zone. Take out the architect's declaration for March 20th, the physical document, the handwritten page. If you no longer have it, if it was lost, discarded, or never formally written, you can still execute the second strike, but the calibration will be less precise. Working from the original document is working from the original specification. Working from memory is working from a reconstruction, and reconstructions carry the biases of the current moment rather than the clarity of the original. Read the declaration, the one-sentence architecture, the 3 commitments, the 1 elimination. Read it slowly, not skimming, reading each word as if you were inspecting each line of a blueprint for a building that will stand for 30 years. Notice what has changed in you since you wrote it, not what has changed in the world, what has changed in your relationship to the specification. Some elements will feel exactly right. The same resonance as the day you wrote them. A quiet click of recognition. __, quote, _7, __. Those elements compiled cleanly. They do not need adjustment. They survived the retrograde. They survived the first 3 weeks of execution, and they carried their signal through noise without losing shape. Leave them. Do not improve what is working. Over-engineering a functioning component is a distinct category of waste. The calibration targets are elsewhere. Some elements will feel slightly off, not wrong, but imprecise. The commitment that was clear in March now seems to need a more specific target. __, quote, _8, __. Was the right direction, but the mechanism is now clearer. Perhaps it is a specific type of product, a specific market, a specific partnership. A timeline that felt right on March 20th may need adjustment. Faster in some areas, the firehorse is compressing. Slower in others. The retrograde revealed dependencies that need more time. This is not failure. This is the execution data showing you where the specification was too broad or too narrow. Mark these elements. They are the calibration targets. They need tightening, not replacement. Some elements will feel foreign, as if someone else wrote them. A commitment that no longer seems relevant. An elimination that reinstalled itself within a week, and you are not sure you want to remove it again. A sentence in the architecture that does not match who you are 4 weeks later. This is important. The foreign feeling can mean 2 things, and they require opposite responses. It can mean the element was the product of a program, one of the installed scripts identified in Video 5, and the real you does not resonate with it. The program wrote a line in the declaration while wearing your handwriting. And 4 weeks of execution revealed the forgery. The body test from the Easter diagnostic applies here. Question the foreign element, state its opposite, and feel. If the body relaxes when you imagine removing it, it is a program artifact. Remove it from the declaration and replace it with something native. Something that, when stated, produces not enthusiasm, but structural recognition. The difference between a wish and a specification. Wishes excite, specifications settle. Or it can mean the element was genuinely yours, but represented a stretch that the current self is resisting. The commitment to leave a stable career. The elimination of a relationship that provides comfort but not growth. The architectural sentence that describes a version of you that does not yet exist, but was written from the part of you that knows it should. This is harder to parse. The body test again. If removing the element produces not relief but unease, a tightness that says __, quote, _9 __. Keep it. The stretch is the architecture. The discomfort is the construction noise. Builders do not work in silence. The noise means the walls are going up. Now the calibration itself. On a new sheet of paper, again handwritten, same neural circuitry engagement as the original, write the updated declaration. Not from scratch, from the original with annotations. Cross out what is being removed. Add what is being updated. Keep what remains unchanged. The document should look like an engineer's revised blueprint, the original visible underneath, the revisions marked clearly, the version number incremented. Specifically, one adjustment to the architecture sentence, not a total rewrite, one word, one phrase, one specification that tightens the aim. One adjustment to one of the three commitments, the one that stalled or drifted, recalibrated based on execution data. The elimination. If it held, confirm it. If it reinstalled, recommit, and this time identify what filled the gap that the elimination created. If the gap was filled with noise, specify the replacement more precisely. If the gap was filled with something unexpected and better than planned, update the elimination to reflect the new understanding. Sign the document, date it April 17th. Place it with or on top of the March 20th original. 2 documents, 2 strikes, 1 architecture. Version 2. I left the second strike protocol as a 1-page worksheet in the Telegram channel, the audit framework, the calibration questions, and the resubmission format. Use it the morning of the 17th before the new moon window opens. Come to the window prepared. The window does not wait. Then, in the first hour of the new moon, sit with the updated declaration. Not for 10 minutes this time, for 30. The equinox rite needed 10 minutes of silence because the specification was being submitted for the first time. The second strike needs 30 because the specification is being overlaid onto an executing build. The existing execution needs time to recognize the update. The running processes need time to adjust their parameters. 30 minutes of silence after writing the second strike is the deployment verification period, the equivalent of watching the server logs after pushing a code update. Do not start new activities. Do not check the phone. Do not talk. Watch. Feel. Notice what settles, what gets amplified on April 17th. Everything that compiled cleanly from the first strike, the elements that executed despite the retrograde, the commitments that moved, the financial patterns that activated, gets amplified by the new moon conjunction. Amplification here means more resources allocated, faster execution speed, stronger structural reinforcement. The elements that are working get more fuel. The fire horse was already accelerating them. The new moon intensifies the acceleration. Think of it as the difference between riding the horse and riding the horse downhill. Same horse, more momentum. The elements that compiled cleanly in the first 4 weeks will compile faster and more completely in the next 4. The second strike calibration targets, the adjusted elements, the tightened specifications, the recalibrated commitments, get submitted through a window of maximum fidelity. The April 17th submission quality exceeds the March 20th quality on every dimension. The original was written at 0 bias, but through a jammed channel. The update is written with 28 days of execution data through a clean channel at a moment of triple conjunction amplification. If the original declaration was the architectural sketch, the second strike is the engineering drawing, more precise, more detailed, based on field testing rather than projection. What does not get amplified? Vague intentions that were not formalized. Wishes that were not converted to specifications. Elements of the declaration that were left deliberately blank, those remain placeholders. The new moon amplifies what is written. Blank space amplifies into blank results. Vagueness amplifies into diffusion. The specificity of the second strike document determines the specificity of the April amplification. Now, the honest part. I have been building this series for 5 weeks, since March 16th. 9 videos from the start of April. Each was a step in a sequence. Identify, rewrite, transmit, accelerate, calibrate. The sequence assumes a specific trajectory, upward. More clarity, more execution, more results. And for many of the people watching, that trajectory holds. The March declaration is executing. The Easter rewrite cleared a constraint. The financial patterns are activating. The energy is returning. The architecture is compiling. The second strike will deepen the engraving and accelerate the build. But not for everyone. And what comes next in the next video is the conversation that most channels in this space never have. What happens when you do everything by the protocol and the result is not ascent but descent? When the energy does not return but drops further? When the financial patterns activate in reverse, not inflow but outflow? When the clarity that was promised feels like fog that deepened instead of lifting? When the architect's declaration sits on the desk and feels like a document from someone else's life? This happens. Not to the failed, not to the undisciplined, not to those who did not try hard enough. It happens to people who followed every step precisely, and the mechanism is not failure. It is a phase. It has a name: the decompilation phase. The period when the old architecture has been demolished, but the new one has not yet compiled. The interface is temporarily blank. The operating environment shows no program running. And the person standing in that blank space does not feel liberated. They feel lost. Pretending this phase does not exist, which is what most content in this space does, is not optimism. It is abandonment. The next video is not motivational. It is diagnostic. For those who feel the rise, it will explain why the rise accelerates from here and what to watch for. For those who feel the fall, it will explain what is actually happening, how long the decompilation phase lasts, what the indicators of progress within it look like, and what to do that is not trust the process, but something more honest and more useful. No affirmations, no rose-colored glasses. The engineering of what happens when the old is gone and the new has not yet arrived. The second strike window opens in 48 hours. Calibrate the blueprint. Submit the update. And then, whatever you are feeling after the 17th, whether it is acceleration or silence, whether the markers are strong or absent, the next video will meet you where you are. Your architecture has been calibrated. Now it gets honest.